In this lecture, we're going to learn about the default global namespace. And this is nothing other than what you have outside any namespace. For example, here we have a piece of code. We have a function called add. We have a namespace called myThing. And inside the namespace, we have another add function. And we can have another function called do something. The add function we have on the outside is living in the global namespace because it's not living in any namespace, and anything outside any namespace is said to live in the default global namespace. This is the idea here. Once we have the setup like we do here, we can go in the main function and try to use the functions we have here. For example, we can call this do something function using the syntax you see here. We say the namespace name, we put colon, colon, and then we say the name of the function that we want to call. This is going to work. We can even call the add function, which is going to do something different. It's going to -1 just to show that it is a different function. It is possible to do something like that. And to call this function inside the namespace, you will need to prefix it with the namespace name. Now, what do you do if you want to call the function here on the outside? You can directly call it, and it is going to be called, but you can also specify colon, colon to mean that you are calling the function from the outside, and this is going to be really cool. That's what you see that we do here in our namespace. We're going to call the function from the outside, but we are going to be calling it inside our namespace, and the colon, colon here is going to remove the confusion for the compiler. Now that you see this, we're going to head over to Visual Studio Code and play with this a little more. Okay, here we are in our working folder. The current project is default global namespace. We're going to set up our template files. We're going to copy them and we're going to put them in the current project. We're going to open this in Visual Studio Code by dragging and dropping here, and we're going to have our main CPP file. We're going to clean it up a little bit and close the left sidebar here. To save on time, I am going to put in the code we're going to be using here. It is really nothing complicated. We have an add function, which is going to add up the parameters that it gets. It's going to return a plus b, and you're going to get the sum returned here. We also have a namespace called myThing. Inside the namespace, we have another function called add, and it's going to add up 2 parameters and return the result. But notice that it's going to -1 just to do some adjustment to show you that you can have the functions named the same way inside the different namespaces. We also have a do something function, which is going to call the add function that we have on the outside. And we are using this setup here to try and remove the confusion as to how do you use these 2 functions here that have the same name. Now, we have our function, we have our namespace. Let's try and use these things in the main function. Suppose we want to call the do something function here. What we can do is say myThing. We are going to say the namespace name, and we're going to say do something. And this is going to call our function here. It's going to give us the result, and it's going to print it out. Let's build and run this program to show that it is actually working. We're going to bring up a terminal. You see that the build is good. We're going to clear and run Rooster. You're going to see that result is 11. 5 plus 6 is 11. And we are calling the add function from the outside here. And this thing happens to be living in the global namespace. It doesn't live in any namespace. Okay, so this is what I want you to see. Anything that is not explicitly living in any namespace is going to be living in the default global namespace. And if you want to call something from the global namespace, you use the syntax we use here. You say colon, colon, and the compiler is going to know that you want to call something declared or defined in the global namespace. Suppose we go in our namespace here and we remove the colon, colon here. Let's try and see what is going to happen. The compiler is going to choose the closest thing it can get its hands on. And it's going to see, I am living in myThing namespace. If somebody calls the add function, I am going to call the add function in the namespace where I am living. And if we build this program, we're going to see that the build is good, but if we run it, we're going to see that we are calling the add function, which is going to -1, and this may not be what you want. If what you want is really to call this function, then this is fine. But if you intend to call the function on the outside here, you're not going to get what you expect. Let's build. I think we have built this, but let's just build again to be sure. We're going to see that the build is good. We can clear and run rooster. We're going to see that now the result is 10 because the function we are calling is the function inside our namespace here. Again, if what we want is the function living in the global namespace, we have to prefix that with colon colon, and the compiler is going to know, this guy is calling the function not in this namespace here, and the compiler is going to search outside this namespace, and it's going to look into the global namespace here. And if we build and run this program, we're going to get what we expect. We're going to clear and run rooster. We're going to see that the result now is 11. This is really all I had to share in this lecture, showing you how you can set up things in the global namespace. If you want to call stuff living in the global namespace, this is the syntax you use. You say colon colon, and the compiler is going to know that it's going to go and look in the global namespace and look for the names that you are calling here, and everything is going to work as you expect. We are going to stop here in this lecture. In the next one, we're going to see that there are some already built-in namespaces that we have actually been using all along without knowing, and we're going to see a little bit about that. Go ahead and finish up here and meet me there.